is your news source evening bulletin for today, Thursday, the 30th day of January in the year 2020. I'm Gordon Mosley, thanking you for joining us. Here is what we're tracking tonight. The annual Police Officers Conference opened this morning with President David Granger speaking about the improvements that the police force has undergone and the need for a larger police force. The Guyana Police Force currently has just over 4,900 persons in its employ, which is a little over its required strength. The President said moves will be made to augment the force's strength in keeping with his decade of development plan.
The force's personal strength of about 4,600 is inadequate and will be augmented during the decade of development. Our country's land space makes it larger in extent than England and Scotland combined. With 3,000 kilometers of border and 460 kilometers of seacoast, the force is challenged to enforce the law effectively.
President Granger also addressed the development of officers in the force. More training will be done, even as better salaries are offered.
Personnel has increased by 37.6% up to December 2019. It is now being supported by a 1,900-member constabulary. Policemen and women are now enjoying improved wages and salaries. The average pay of a constable has increased from $55,889 in 2014 to $88,237 at the end of last year. The force must be brought up to strength. Trained police officers must be deployed away from non-core functions such as immigration and certification of vehicle road fitness licenses and gun licenses. These non-core functions must be outsourced.
According to the President, he wants to see the grooming of more versatile officers in the Guyana Police Force, and those officers should be well equipped to take on different jobs.
Reforms to be implemented over the next 10 years will create a stronger, more mobile, more versatile, more professional force. The force is a national, not a coastal organization. It must reach and extend its reach to the most thinly populated and the most geographically challenging terrain in the country.
On the issue of community relations, President Granger said vigorous efforts are being made to improve relations between the police force and communities, adding that a Citizenship Security Strengthening Program funded the establishment of 20 community action councils to assist with crime fighting. That move also included support for the training of community members to better address domestic violence and to promote good parenting practices and neighborhood watch schemes. In the past year, the Guyana Police Force has seen a decentralization of its administration. Divisional boundaries have now been aligned with regional administrative boundaries. The force's structure and staffing levels across all divisions were reviewed. More news coming up in just a moment.
Tired of long lines? Register with MyGTT at mygtt.co.gy. That's mygtt.co.gy to view and pay your bills from anywhere. Enter to win an Amazon gift card worth $25 or a bounty voucher worth 5,000 Guyana dollars when you sign up today. GTT, do more.
Fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up. Fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up. Protect your fuel system, boy. High mileage and performance, boy.
Guyana's Super 95 gasoline gives you more reasons to drive and is available at 56 service stations nationwide. For affordable price, high performance, and high mileage, choose Guyana's Super 95 gasoline.
Fuel it up and drive.
All across our nation, Guyana, we see it in your lives. The future growing even stronger. GBTI, all eyes on Guyana skies as the voices of our people rise again. GBTI, Guyana's pride is in your eyes. GBTI, we see Guyana through your
Welcome back. The Russian-owned Rusal bauxite company is coming under severe criticism for its decision to send its remaining workers home, as other workers who were laid off last week over an alleged fuel shortage at the company continue their blockage of the Berbice River. Workers were notified yesterday of the company's decision to send them all home, which it said is based on the adverse operations and circumstances, including the blockage of the Berbice River. The letter to the workers, which listed their names and job descriptions, informed them yesterday of their dismissal, which took effect from today. The move by the company came on the eve of a previously scheduled meeting between the company and the chief labor officer over the company's decision last week to lay off over 100 workers because of a reported fuel shortage. The company had come under criticism for that move by both the government and the trade union representing the workers, with union officials pointing to the timing of the company's decision and linking it to an attempt to influence the elections. The more than 100 workers who were laid off were told that they would get their jobs back once the fuel situation stabilized. But the workers questioned the move, saying that there was never any fuel shortage. They protested by blocking sections of the Berbice River to prevent the company from loading and shipping its bauxite. The Guyana Bauxite and General Workers Union is calling on the government to accelerate its actions to address the evolving labor issues at the Rusal Bauxite Company. At a press conference today at the Critchlow Labor College, President of the union Lincoln Lewis urged the Ministry of Labor to address the labor violations of the company.
The Guyana Bauxite and General Workers Union and the Guyana Trade Union Congress calls on Guyanese to set aside any and all differences and hold hands against the continued disrespect. For evidently, comrades, we are facing the fight of our life to preserve who we are as a sovereign nation and people.
Mr. Lewis reminded that the country has existing labor laws that speak to the process of dismissal of employees, and it clearly outlines that notice needs to be given before a contract is terminated. He said the government needs to stand up to the foreign company on behalf of its people.
Whereas rank and file Guyanese are prepared to confront this disrespect and stand resolutely in determination, government must, and I repeat, government must, that it has to stand with the people. This is a blatant attempt by Russia in seeking to position itself in this hemisphere, in quest for global dominance, and Guyana must not become a satellite state. The timing of this unprovoked conflict is also suspect. It is not by accident, but strategic in the light of the nation facing general and regional elections in a few weeks, which can create social upheavals and or influence the results.
The union president said he has not heard from the government on the situation as yet, but he intends to go to the mining site at Araimo tomorrow to speak directly to the affected workers.
The company has said very clear that they're not going to conciliation. They're not going to have it. Finally, they ended up at conciliation. And since last year, August we applied, to now, right? We have not had from the Labor Department a final position to say whether they declare deadlock on this issue, because we're not getting anywhere. That's what the union is asking for. The union said, look, let us exhaust the grievance procedure to get to where we are.
The union officials recalled that the issues with Rusal started more than 10 years ago, and since then the union has been working on ensuring that workers are adequately compensated and respected. Mr. Lewis made a comparison to Bosai, another bauxite company which operates in Linden. He said the workers at Bosai, which is managed by a Chinese company, are paid more than 40% more than the workers at Rusal. On the campaign trail right now, President David Granger last evening announced a plan by the APNU-AFC coalition to give direct cash grants to families with school-aged children when the money from oil starts to pour in. There has been a debate for months over whether direct cash transfers ought to be given to citizens from the proceeds of oil production. Last evening was the first time that a plan was announced by the president that would see such a move. He made the announcement during a rally in the town of Anna Regina in Essequibo.
We want to ensure that after the oil money comes on stream, that bonanza, that bonus, that bounty is used for you. That is why we've declared a decade of development. We don't want to put oil money into the pockets of rich people. We want to put oil money into your homes, your households. And that is why Cabinet has deliberated. We are going to ensure that every family that gets children to school will get a cash grant to keep their child in school. The money will be coming to you.
The president said the move will form part of his decade of development, which will also focus on several areas of development for the country.
We want to make sure that prosperity comes to every village, every community, Amerindian or African or Indian, into the towns. Not for the few, but for the many. This year, 2020, is a year of decision. It's a year for starting this decade of development. It's a serious year, and you have a serious decision to make in 33 days' time.
Guyana stands to benefit from billions of dollars in earnings from the oil sector. Oil production started just over 1 month ago, and the country's economy is set to grow by more than 80% this year. Still on the campaign trail with general and regional elections just over a month away, PPP General Secretary and Opposition Leader Barra Jagdeo said he still has concerns about the state of the Guyana Elections Commission and its preparations for the upcoming polls. At his weekly solo press conference this afternoon, Mr. Jagdeo said he has written to the Elections Commission on a number of concerns.
We are now looking carefully at placement of presiding officers, placement of deputy ROs, to ensure that this is done randomly, that there is no pattern to the placement which can lead to rigging.
Mr. Jagdeo also noted that while plans appear to be going well for the elections, he has told the Elections Commission that he still has not received the assurance that all procedures will be followed on the day of the elections to ensure free and fair elections.
Secondly, we want to be assured by GCOM that the chain of custody for not only that polling day procedures are properly handled, but the chain of custody for the transmittal of the polling, the statements of poll, and the tabulation of the results, that chain of custody is not broken, that the party agents are the only ones who can follow that, not the mob, as Valda Lawrence said, and as the CEO pointed out. Only the party agents can follow the boxes and the statements of poll.
The Guyana Elections Commission has already given the assurance to the political parties and the international community that the elections will be free and fair. The chairperson of the commission has made it clear that she will not sell her integrity for all the oil in Guyana. In the courts right now, a former murder accused who was on remand for over 6 years for the murder of his cousin has taken a step through his attorney to sue the state for $100 million for holding him in custody unlawfully while not affording him a high court trial during those more than 6 years. 33-year-old Cloyd Harris, through his attorneys, has indicated that a lawsuit was filed over damages for breach of his constitutional rights. He's asking the court to declare that he was unlawfully arrested and detained for almost 7 years without a reasonable trial, as is afforded by the Constitution of Guyana. He's also contending that he is entitled to compensation for the unconstitutional deprivation of his liberty, as well as damages. The former murder accused wants the state to pay him for the time that he spent behind bars. He was arrested and charged back in 2012 for the murder of his 71-year-old cousin, Derek Cox, who was shot by suspected bandits outside his shop. While he was arrested and charged and committed to stand trial, he spent close to 7 years awaiting that trial, as documents from the magistrate's court had not been forwarded to the High Court. the Director of Public Prosecutions eventually caused the reopening of the preliminary inquiry to admit additional evidence from one of the witnesses. And it was that witness who was key to the case and who testified that he had not seen the accused commit the act. The case was thrown out for lack of evidence. The man said the time he spent behind bars for a crime he did not do has caused his decision to sue the state. Across the Region is coming up next.
The voting process. Once you have been identified as the elector you claim to be, you would be given a ballot paper that is stamped at the back, top and bottom halves in your presence. On the ballot paper, provision is made for you to vote twice. Once at the top section where you vote for the party of your choice in the general election, and once at the bottom section where you vote for the party of your choice in the regional election. Make your mark in the box provided on the right of your choice. After you have voted, fold the ballot paper as shown by the election official. Dip the first joint of your right index finger in the ink provided and place the ballot paper in the ballot box that is there for this purpose. You would then have to peacefully depart the polling station. For more information, contact GCOM on 225-027729, 223-9653, email pro@gcom.org.gy, or visit GCOM's website at www.gcom.org.gy.
You're out of a job, right?
I am.
How long have you been in construction? What's your experience? Show me how hard you can work. That's it? We'll call you. Sir, I'll be tempted to touch you if you don't step back. Sir, kindly remove from the premises. Sir, you're making me hot. Please remove from the premises. Come on, sir, give me some more. What is that? Give me more. I want more. I want to see that You're too sexy for this job. Sir, this job requires muscle power. What do you have? Flexibility. This job requires that you work long hours, hard hours.
Sign me up, I come for this work. Sign me up, I come for it. Boss lady, I come for this work. Sign me up, I come.
We are legions of men standing strong, but never too proud to stoop and help someone. We must send a clear signal to all. Do right. Walk in upright ways, knowing that's what being a man is all about. And ever aware that things will only get worse when good men do nothing. Stand strong. Be the one to live right.
Across the region right now, based on its forecast, the Central Bank of Barbados is more upbeat about Barbados' economic growth prospects this year than the International Monetary Fund. But Central Bank Governor Cleviston Haynes says they are monitoring the deadly coronavirus outbreak, as this could potentially harm global tourism and ultimately the Barbados economy. The veteran economist also hoped that last year's record 49 homicides was an aberration, since high crime levels can be a deterrent for tourists. Haynes was responding to questions from the media yesterday after the central bank reported in its 2019 review that the Barbadian economy contracted by 0.1%. While in its recent outlook, the IMF predicted Barbados' economy would grow by 0.6% this year, the central bank's forecast is for between 1.25% and 1.75% economic growth. Well, Colombia will allow hundreds of thousands of Venezuelan migrants to legalize their presence in the country through work permits meant to bring them into the legal economy, the government has announced. Colombia is the principal destination for Venezuelan migrants fleeing from political, social, and economic crisis under the government of President Nicolas Maduro. Unlike its neighbors, Colombia has not imposed stringent immigration requirements on the Venezuelans, and 1.6 million of Venezuelans now live in Colombia. The UN said last year the figure could rise to 2.4 million by the end of this year. The first permit is a renewal of the so-called PEP visa, which was previously used by the government to give legal status to migrants. It could benefit some 200,000 Venezuelans who entered the Andean country before November 29 last year, the migration agency said in a statement. And finally, at this time, international news. More than 6,000 people were kept on board a cruise ship in the Italian port city of Civitavecchia earlier today, after the cruise liner was placed on lockdown over fears that 2 Chinese passengers could be carrying the coronavirus. Preliminary tests on the pair suggested they were not carrying the virus, the Ministry of Health said, although definitive results could take up to 48 hours. In the meantime, the mayor of Civitavecchia, a city north of Rome, has asked that passengers be disembarked only when the results are definitive. Earlier in the day, there were chaotic scenes as the mayor confronted the harbor master after the harbor master told journalists that he had been given the go-ahead to disembark the 1,140 passengers who were at the end of their trip. Fear has been gripping the world following the outbreak of the coronavirus in China. There are now over 6,000 infections, with over 140 persons losing their lives. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting.